Now moving on, the first high-level trilateral negotiations between Ukraine and Russia and the United States in Abu Dhabi have ended, marking a pivotal moment in efforts to end the nearly 4-year war. The Kremlin, has represented by GRU Chief Admiral Igor Kostyukov, insists that Ukrainian forces withdraw from all of the Donbas, which include Donetsk and Luhansk regions. Russia specifically demands that Kyiv cede the remaining 25% of the Donetsk region it still controls, including key cities like Sloviansk and Kramatorsk. Meanwhile, President Volodymyr Zelensky and lead negotiator Rustem Umerov have rejected these demands, maintaining that any territorial concessions are unacceptable and must be decided by the Ukrainian people via referendum. Although Moscow has expressed openness to further dialogue, the encouraged formula for territorial resolution still remains the most significant barrier to a long-term settlement. Now, for this discussion, we welcome back Mr. David K. Johnston. He's joining us live from New York. Thank you very much, Mr. Johnston, for staying with us. Now that it has moved from bilateral to trilateral discussion, do you think it was because Trump or Trump's envoys, they pushed America agenda a little too hard?
Well, no doubt they're pushing. The problem is that the American negotiators are pushing the Kremlin's plan. They want Ukraine to not only give up territory that Russia has seized, but territory that Russia has been unable to seize because its army isn't very good. Why would any country give up territory, especially territory that it controls? So I don't think anything will come of these talks except further delays. And Putin, of course, believes fundamentally that this is a war of attrition now, and he can outlast Ukraine because he has a country with roughly 140 million people, 4 times plus what the Ukrainians have.
And how frustrated is Trump right now? Do you think he's still motivated to broker peace between Ukraine and Russia?
Oh, I think Trump's always been motivated to broker some kind of a peace deal. He wants to claim credit for this. Remember, he claims he's ended 8 wars, one of which never took place. So he very much wants to do this. He promised that if returned to the White House, he wouldn't even need to be sworn in. As soon as he won the election, that would be the end of the war. Well, now we're 14, 15 months later, and they haven't gotten anywhere. It's important, I think, to have a little history here. When the first Western democracy began in Athens, they broke people up into different clans so that there was no power group that could challenge the overall democracy. During the Stalinist era, the Soviet era, they deliberately forced people who were Ukrainians to move to Russian areas and Russians to move to Ukrainian areas to dilute solidarity among people. And that's what Putin is trying to play with now. There are a significant minority of Russian-speaking peoples in the eastern part of Ukraine. And he's trying to take advantage of the communist plans from back in the 20s and 30s and relocations to further his desire to do what Trump says he wants to do, which is expand the footprint of his government.
So now, given Russia's demand for full Ukrainian withdrawal and Ukraine's insistence on referendum, how might this Trump-style diplomatic approach address this deadlock?
I don't see it resulting in any change. I think that very much the Trump administration is pushing the Kremlin's line. They're not saying to well, they could imagine what would happen if Trump said to the Kremlin, look, you can have the territory you took, but we're not going to help you take territory you haven't taken yet by force. Putin would say, well, that's unacceptable to us. And that's the key factor here. I think it's possible that Zelensky could be persuaded to give up the territory the Russians have conquered, but there's no possibility that he's going to give up after all the deaths that have been suffered by the Ukrainian people, including, attacks on obstetrics hospitals where women are delivering babies, on old age homes, on public schools, on train depots, that they're going to give up territory that the incompetent Russian army has been unable to secure. So this is just going to drag on and drag on. And if Trump is still in the White House 3 years from now, if you have me on, my guess is we'll be still talking about it.
Right. And if, like you mentioned, we were talking about this in earlier discussion, that what will Trump do to gain popularity or votes? Do you think that he will be pushing the peace of Ukraine and Russia more forcefully, because this might get him more votes?
Well, we're going to get a real good test of that starting next week. Trump is about to hop on Air Force One and fly around the country trying to build back relations with a lot of the MAGA crowd, who are, remember, a minority. The MAGA followers are 20-25% of the U.S. adult population. And so he's out on a repair tour with that group, and they don't care much about Ukraine. The MAGA crowd does not care about the U.S. position as supporting individual freedom and liberty. In fact, many of them, and I've jousted with a lot of them on call-in shows and on the internet, they don't believe in democracy. Mitt Romney, the Republican presidential nominee in 2012, said about a year ago, millions of people in my party, that's the Republican Party, don't believe in democracy. And he's quite right about that. There are a lot of people in America who don't want to have democracy except for themselves, and they want to have control and oppression for people they don't think are like them because of their religion or their skin color. So this is not a good situation. Trump is finding that the public is not with him. His approval ratings are falling. And on top of all of this, every economic indicator except the stock market is pointing downward since Trump came in. The price of gasoline has come down, but the prices of other things have not. Overall, there's a general price increase. There's a loss of a lot of jobs. The growth in jobs that was way far out record growth under Biden has turned into flat to falling jobs. So Trump has a lot of work to do if he thinks he's going to repair his position with the American Republican. Being at 32% approval rating, that's a really deep hole.
With that, I would like to thank Mr. Johnston for joining us today and sharing that insight throughout our news. Thank you very much. Now we move the focus on to Turkey. Turkey is pro-Kurdish Democratic